Bruchim Havoim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chof Beis Amud Beis. Start with Daf Chof Beis Amud Aleph Halacha Dalid, the final Mishnah in Masechet Shekalim. The topic of our Mishnah is that the Korban Tamid, as well as the Korban Musafin, where do we put the Eivarim of those animals, of those Korbanos, on the Kevesh of the Mizbech? In other words, the protocol is that the Korban Tamid is shechted and the dam is sprinkled on the Mizbeach. Subsequently, the animal is cut into different large pieces of their Eivarim, and then they place, the Kohanim, the Eivarim on the Kevesh of the Mizbeach. Only subsequently then is it brought on top of the Mizbeach to be burnt. So too when it comes to the Korban Musafin. So the Mishnah says as follows: Eivarei hatomid nitonin mechetzi kevesh ulamato b'marav. If we're walking into the Azara from the Shar Nicanor, in other words, we're facing west, so a little bit to our left would be then the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach has a kevesh, a ramp to the left, which is really towards the south side. And that kevesh is 32 amos long and 16 amos wide. And therefore it states over here, the Eivarim of the Korban Tamid is placed on the bottom half of the kevesh, on the western side, the side that's closest to the Kodesh. Then the Mishnah goes on to this: Shel Musafin nitonin mechetzi kevesh ulamato b'mizrach. The Musafin is also placed on the bottom of the kevesh, the bottom half of the kevesh. However, those Eivarim are placed on the east side of the kevesh. That's to make a distinction between that and the Korban Tamid. Although normally the Musafim are brought only after the Korban Tamid has been now placed on the Mizbech and burnt. But those times when it does not yet have the opportunity to yet be placed on the Mizbeach, in order to distinguish between the Musafin and the Tamid, the Musafin is placed on the east side of the Kevesh. The Mishnah goes on to say, Shel Roshei Chodashim Nitonin Al Kyorkov HaMizbech Lemala. The first Musaf that we were discussing was the Musafin of the Shabbos and the Yomim Tovim. This Musaf now discusses of Rosh Chodesh, and that's placed on a prominent position on the Karkov, which is around the Soivev. The Gemara will discuss that, of the Mizbech, which is on the higher part, the upper part of the Mizbeach, and that's again in a prominent area for everybody to see that there was no pikpuk, and that the Bezdin made a clear declaration of Rosh Chodesh. Today is Rosh Chodesh, and the Musafim is coming to declare that as well. The Mishnah goes on to say, Hashkolim v'habikurim einon nohagin ela b'fnei abayis. Both the giving the machzis hashekel as well as the bringing of the 7 bikurim fruits that grow in Eretz Yisrael, those things are only relevant when we have a Beis Hamikdash. Otherwise, they're not relevant because the Shekalim come to buy the Korbanos Tzibur. We don't have a Beis Hamikdash, so it's not relevant. And also when it comes to the bikurim, there it is brought also to the Mizbeach, also brought to the Beis Hamikdash, as a pasuk states quite emphatically. The pasuk says, "Tavi Beis Hashem." The Mishnah goes on to say, "Aval meiser dogon u'meiser behema u'becharois noihagin bo b'fnei abayis u'bein shelo b'fnei abayis." These things are relevant also when there's no Beis Hamikdash. Starting with the meiser dogon, that's trumas a meiser that is d'oraisa. That even if we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, providing that Roiv of Klal Yisrael live in Eretz Yisrael, the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael does not go away, and therefore those fruits, specifically the grains that grow in Eretz Yisrael, midi araisa, still have truas and meises required from them. The meiser behema, which is 1/10, 1 out of every 10 animals every year taken from the flock, the 10th one is meiser. That's to be brought also when there's a Mizbeach, that's to be brought to the Beis Hamikdash. When there's no Beis Hamikdash, it still has Kedusha, and we have to wait till it's a mum in order to then be able to then use it. Similarly, when it comes to the Becharos is Kedusha from the Rechem, the firstborn, and therefore also, normally it is brought as a carbon. Without the Beis Hamikdash, it is still relevant, but we have to have, again, a mum, so that then is able to be used. So that's noyeg bein bifnei abayis bein she'ein shelo bifnei abayis. The Mishnah concludes, hamakdish shkalim ubikurim harei ze kodesh. The Tanna Kama says, one who is makdish, however, the shkalim, he gives makdish asher is makdish it, or he's makdish bikurim, fruit, so it will still have kedusha. Rabbi Shimon Oimer, bikurim kodesh einoi bikurim kodesh eino kodesh. If one is makdish bikurim fruit, it does not become kodesh. But the diuk is, of course, that if he is giving shkolim, that even Rabbi Shimon agrees that it does have kedusha. Ask the Gemara right away, Ezehu karkoiv hamizbeach. It's stated in our Mishnah when it comes to the musafim of the Rosh Chodesh, the avarim are placed on the karkoiv of the mizbeach, which we said is from above the soivev. So ask the Gemara, what is the karkov hamizbeach? Explains the Gemara, Amma bein keren lekeren, is the Amma strip between one corner and the other corner of the tops of the mizbeach. Makom hiluch ragle kohanim. It is the place where the kohanim are able to walk from one to the other. The Gemara then says, Musafei Shabbos, Musafei Rosh Chodesh mikoydem. If you have both, when it comes out the Rosh Chodesh on Shabbos, so you have two Musafin, the Musaf of Shabbos and of Rosh Chodesh, which one has din kedima, which one has precedence? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yirmiyahu Meimar, he thought to say, Musfei Shabbos, Musafei Rosh Chodesh, Musfei Rosh Chodesh koydmin. The Musaf of the Rosh Chodesh precedes the Musaf of Shabbos. Why? Chaylid Rabbi Yirmiyahu min hada. Rabbi Yirmiyahu, he brought strength for his own position from the following. It says, Shiru shel Shabbos, v'shiru shel Rosh Chodesh. When the Levim are singing both the song of Shabbos and the song for Rosh Chodesh, as the Korban Musaf is being burnt, so then what take precedence? Says the Gemara, Shiru shel Rosh Chodesh koydem. The shear of the Levim shel Rosh Chodesh precedes the shear of the Shabbos. So from here he says, if that's the case, then also the carbon of the Musaf Rosh Chodesh should precede the carbon of the Musaf of Shabbos. Rav Yoisa, Shanya hi taman. Rav Yoisa says that that's different over there. You cannot bring a proof from the singing of the Levim that had the carbon of the Musaf Rosh Chodesh precede the song of the Shabbos, to learn that the Musaf is brought of the Rosh Chodesh is brought before the Musaf of Shabbos, because the Amar B'chia b'Shem Rabbi Yochanan kedei lefarsimo loidia she Rosh Chodesh. The reason why the song that the Levim sang of Rosh Chodesh preceded that of Shabbos is in order to then mefarsem, to publicize that the day itself is Rosh Chodesh. Everybody should know that they were mekadesh the Yom, the mekadesh the Chodesh. Ketzad haya oise. How would they do? Asked the Gemara, Shoichet Musvei Shabbos. They would shoichet the Musaf of Shabbos, V'oimer Alein Shiur Shel Rosh Chodesh. And indeed, they would first start singing the Levim, the Shir of Rosh Chodesh. Here, it doesn't mean shoichet, really, kipshuta, it means the burning of the Musaf, but that would precede first with the song of Rosh Chodesh, and then the song of Shabbos. Baram, however, Hocha Musvei Shabbos, Musvei Rosh Chodesh, Musvei Shabbos koydmin. Like we said, the Musaf of Shabbos would precede Al Shem Kol HaTodir Mechaver Koydem Es Chavero. However, when it comes to the actual carbon, the Musaf of Shabbos precedes the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. The Mishnah stated that in regards to Shkalim and Bikurim, according to Tanna Kama, they are Kodesh if a person is Mekadesh them, even Bizmanein, without the Beis HaMikdash. And then we had Rabbi Shimon who's choylik, and he says Bikurim is not going to be sanctified. Says the Gemara, Diuk, that which Rabbi Shimon says that Bikurim is not sanctified, Hashkalim Kadshu, but the Shkalim would yes be sanctified. Gemara brings another opinion in the Shem Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Shimon says differently than what we have Rabbi Shimon in our Mishnah. And he says, Bein elu loi kodshu. Both these and those, both shkalim and bikurim, will not become sanctified when there's no Beis Hamikdash. Tani, the Gemara brings a brayso, Gersh bizman hazeh tzorich lahavi kinoi revis kesef. A ger who's misgayer bizmanenu, the Gemara says, in this brayso, he has to bring a quarter of a dinar, the minimum amount, to be able to purchase a pair of birds for his conversion. Rabbi Shimon bitlo. Rabbi Shimon says it's bottle. Since we don't have Beis Hamikdash, it's bottle. He doesn't have a requirement to set aside a quarter of a dinar for his pair of birds. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai mivnei hatakola. Rabbi Yochanan says this will bring a takola if he would be able to then set aside this money. So since it might not be used for some time, so therefore he might use it in an improper way. So therefore we say that it's now no longer in use. We say it's bottle, and he can convert without the setting aside of this money. Ma'umnei takola. What is then because of the takola? The Gemara explains. Kehada detani, like it says in the following brayso, Ein makdishin v'lo ma'arichin v'lo machrimin v'lo magbin shumos u'maisim b'mazeh. We don't sanctify, or we don't do a erech vow or charem, charamim, all of these things that consecrate things to the bedek habayis. These are not done bizmanenu, and therefore v'im hiktish or herich or hecharim or higbia. Then what happens if one does sanctify to the Beis Hamikdash and we don't have a Beis Hamikdash bizmanenu? Then haksus tisarif. If it is a garment, then it shall be burnt. Habehema ti'aker. If it's an animal, then it has to be then uprooted. Ketzad asked the Gemara, what does it mean to uproot the animal? Noyal b'fanei adeles v'hi meisa me'alel. You let it go into a enclosed place, you close the door, and it dies from starvation. V'hamois yelchu liyam hamelach. And the money that was going to be consecrated, that would be then also thrown to the Yam HaMelach. Can't get any use from it. Ask the Gemara, Ovar v'hiktish. What happens if the ger did, even bizmanein, set aside money for the pair of birds? Does that become sanctified? Says the Gemara, Min mada omar v'shimon bitlo, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai mnei hatakola. We said that because of a takola, therefore it's botol bizmanenu. Hoda omra ovar v'hiktish kadoshu. But nonetheless, they said, if he was makdish, it is kodesh, meaning to say that you should not do it lechatchila because of a takala. But the diuk is, however, if it was sanctified, then the ger's money would indeed have kedusha, even bizmanenu. Rabbi Yuda antudaryo boy kumi Rabbi Yosi. He asked in front of Rabbi Yosi the following question: what is the distinction between the money of the ger and the shkolim? Hocha over here at Omar on top of Chavbez Amud Beis, kadshu v'hocha at Omar loy kadshu. When it comes to the money of the ger, you say it has sanctification, even bizmanenu. Yet when it comes to the shkolim, you say it does not have sanctification. This is Rabbi Shimon, that is according to the opinion that says bein bikurim, bein shkolim, it doesn't have kedusha. So Gemara is asking according to that opinion. Omar le taman. It says over there, in regards to the shkolim, lekach ein makdishin lechatchila. Lefi gabe the shkolim, you can't makdish lechatchila because lefi she mitzvah lahakriv mitruma chadosha is a mitzvah to bring the shkolim from the truma chadosha. That means beginning on Rosh Chodesh Nisan to buy the new korbanos. The heich havale yishana. How can you have an old shekel that you then sanctified? It cannot be used for the current year. The hocha mai islach lemeimar. Over here, what are you going to say? Hayishanahi. You're going to say over here, regard to the money of the ger, that it's old. That doesn't make a difference. Legabe hagdashos acherim v'kino shel ger eino tzorich hadasha v'im hiktish kadosh. In regard to the money of the ger, there's no such requirement that it be new. and therefore, if he's makdish even bizmanenu, it has the designation of a kedusha. Ask the Gemara, why don't you leave the Machzis shekel until the Beis Hamikdash is built? In other words, providing that it's not built before the Rosh Chodesh Nisan, so then you can then use it for the new year. The Gemara says, no, Shem Yibona Beis Hamikdash, Habayis Barishono, Kiberishono. Maybe we built like the first original Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan, which was on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. V'hatitorim Chumas Halishka min hachadasha bizmana be'echa benisan. And thereby the Trumas Halishka will have to then take the new Machzis shekel from already the first of Nisan, whereby the old shekel that you already gave as a sanctification is an old shekel. V'hocha ma'is loch. But over here, what is there to you? Rav Hamnun of Rav Ad bar Ava b'shem. In other words, but over here, in regards to the money of the ger, there's no issue. But over here, in regards to the shkolim, that would be an issue. So therefore, that's the chiluk. Now we said there's two opinions of Rabbi Shimon. The opinion of our Mishnah that's brought that makes a chiluk and says that when it comes to bikurim fruit, he argues on the Tanna Kama and says bismanenu. There's no such thing as sanctifying the bikurim fruit. But the diuk is that the shkolim would be sanctified. Whereas the other opinion that the Brisa brought, named Rabbi Shimon, is that both bikurim as well as shkolim, bismanenu, cannot be sanctified. So more now is machriya what the halach is like. Says the Gemara, Rav Hamnun of Rav Ad bar Ava b'shem Rav, halacha ke Rabbi Shimon. The halacha is like Rabbi Shimon, like it's brought in our Mishnah, that he argues with the Tanna Kama by bikurim, but he agrees with the Tanna Kama that even shkolim would be sanctified bismanenu. Hadron aloch perak kol harukin, v'slika lo Masechet Shekalim.